Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our Gradient 101 webinar series. Today's topic is related to by-question grading, and you can access this presentation as well as all of our previous Gradient 101 sessions by using the bit.ly link in the bottom left corner of your screen. I'm your facilitator today. I'm Katie Selstrom. I'm the Director of Customer Experience at Gradient. I'll be able to answer your questions if you post them in chat, or if you leave your email address, we can always follow up after this webinar. Let me jump right into our topic for the day. We'll be reviewing the step-by-step directions for going through by-question grading. We'll share some pro tips, and then if there's time, we'll give you some extra credit work to do if you're a seasoned by-question grading user and you want to see what you can do next. So step by step, we have a support article here for you, as well as an in-app tutorial that you're welcome to use. You need to be logged into Gradient in order to use the tutorial, but it will walk you through all the steps I'm about to show. To get us started, we're just going to jump right into the system and look at by-question grading for our question types that are non-multiple choice. So these are questions where we would expect students to be typing an answer online or writing or drawing a response on paper that we've scanned, and we're now grading it using points or using a rubric. And for those of you that use our student portal or go online with Gradient using Canvas or Schoology, I have a way to show you about providing feedback while you're doing that by-question grading, just in case you want to add that little extra boost, encouragement, or feedback for students as they're reviewing their responses. So let me jump into GradeCam. I'm already inside of an assignment, and I am on the responses tab. So that's where I would go to begin by-question grading. And all I am doing here is I clicked on by question, and I'm able to see all the different questions available to me to grade. Now I can take a look at the multiple choice questions. If I do that, it just shows, in this case, 2 students that have taken this assignment and their scores. Nothing for me to grade here unless I wanted to look back at their score sheet and change an answer. I do have that option, and it immediately tells me whether it's right or wrong. I also can go back to that review area and look at those question types that I'm more likely to be doing by question grading with. So any questions that have a fill in option and any questions that are point or rubric scored would be available to me for by question grading. Our most common use case is those point and rubric scored items. So let me hop into one of those. Here we can see two point rubric questions. One student has yet to respond, and the other student responded online. I can see the typed response, and I'm able to score right in the moment. So I had already filled in some teacher feedback here just to give you a little preview of what that looks like, but I could explain to the student, if they didn't get that perfect score, what they could have done differently for next time, so they have that. I also can just simply click right in and give those rubric scores right away. What's great about this view is you can see all of the students' question responses at once. You can kind of read them over to determine what counts as your highest point value on your rubric or what doesn't, and then go through the grading process. If you were looking at this from a scanned form, it might look a little bit different. We had some teachers sharing some of their actual student responses, so I'm going to hop into one of our Teach It Forward presentations just to illustrate what that looks like. So this is a science teacher. She teaches honors biology. She has set up her assignments to be scanned, but she also likes to give students feedback even after scanning online. So she actually sets up an online review session so students can access the response feedback. So she's kind of doing a mix of both. So here is the scanned response that students wrote on their form, and she's graded it here. And then she's also able to give that online feedback using the review settings in our student portal, so that she doesn't have to hand those papers back or those forms back with the feedback on it. So there's another way that you could be thinking about your by question grading. And just one more example, this is a point scored item. So instead of having those bubbles across the top that match your rubric, if you want to be a little bit more flexible in the way that you give points, maybe you want to give partial credit in some way that doesn't specifically match categories on a rubric, you might in your answer key choose to score with points. And here she has asked students to diagram something. So she's looking at the image, she's giving feedback again online, and then scoring with points. So lots of different options here for by question grading, hopefully making your life a lot easier and grading those responses really quickly. One other little tidbit here that I wanted to mention is when you're really diving into those by question grading options, you might find that you made a mistake on the way the question was worded, or if you used one of our fill in the blank choices where students are just going to answer with one word, you can go back to your key, adjust it, and give credit for those responses as you're seeing them live. So what I mean by that is, let me jump in back to my example here. This is a fill in the blank question where I'm asking for a one-word response. And if I happen to notice that maybe the student spelled this wrong, or they said it, they phonetically wrote it out, I kind of get what they mean, but they didn't write it correctly. I can give them credit for that response by going back to my key, going back to that fill in the blank question, and then answering or adding additional correct responses. So here you can see I added a misspelling of the word as a possible correct response, just to give credit for the student being close. It depends on whether you care whether spelling matters to you. And I gave partial credit for that particular response, but I could have given full credit. I could have given extra credit if the student went above and beyond in their response. So you always can add additional answers here, even add spaces, because our fill in the blank, actually here it's saying we're okay with that one. If our answer is just slightly off, I'll just spell it wrong. We can add those additional responses, and by saving it, it's now going to look for any responses that look like that and give credit back to those students. So not exactly a by question grading feature, but definitely a real life situation that might happen while you're doing by question grading. And that's a great feature of GradeCam that allows you to regrade. You don't have to recreate your key. You don't have to give the test all over again in print forms. A great time saver there. You do have some other links here. If you've never seen the points or rubric options for capturing open response, there's some help resources there for you. And that edit and answer key and regrade option is there for you as well. And then moving on to our extra credit, you might be interested in exploring more question types. I know multiple choice is the way that a lot of us have used gradient in the past, but there are many more question types to use, and it allows you to ask your questions a little bit differently, maybe in a more open-ended way, so that you can kind of see what students know without having to pick from wrong answers, just see what they know out of the gate. You get more of their thinking. So here are some of the question types highlighted for you, and there are links on the left-hand side. If you want to explore some of those question types, we have guidance for you around that. And even how to set up those questions to give partial credit or extra credit to encourage students to really elaborate on their thinking. So definitely check out those links. And then one other tidbit to mention is grade transfer by standard. Let me hop into our system for another example for this one. Pull up an assignment that has some standards aligned to it. Just to point out that once we've done that by question grading, we might want to also align our questions to standards and then transfer that information into our gradebook. So here my answer key has my answer key created. If I go into edit, I can show you how standards have been aligned. So here's the standard that was added. And to do that, all I did was click this add standard option. And then I get to search from the standard banks that I have available and pull in and choose any standards I want just by checking the box. So if I have gone through that effort to add standards, I might want to, after I've done my by question grading, really transfer over the grades just for those particular standards, not the entire assignment, but just those unique ones maybe that I've really been working on to mastery instead of just an introductory skill. So I can do that from that same responses tab over here where it says transfer. I'm able to pick one of my classes that I have finished grading, and I am able to transfer with this performance band abbreviation. That means I can set up a grading scale that's just grading my rubric questions. So instead of grading on a scale where 80 to 90% equals a B and 90 to 100 equals an A, we might convert that to 75% and above, because I'm scoring on a rubric with 4 points. That is equal to an A or a 4 if we're using standards or competency-based grading. Same thing with our other bands. We might want to shift our usual grading scale to use something else. So we call that a performance band abbreviation. And here's where those standards are. So I have my questions. Maybe it's my very last standard here that is the one that was tied to the rubric. And I am able to now transfer my performance band grades using that standard in the performance band. My performance bands happen to be letters. This is an elementary example, but if you could imagine the P being a 4 and the BL being a 2, it would work in the same way. So just a quick little tip there. Hopefully that's helpful. For any other sessions that you've missed, either from this year or last, we have the topics all listed here as well as the recordings. And if you have any questions, you're always able to ask us at support@gradecam.com. We'd be happy to follow up with you. I'm going to stop the recording and check the chat to see if there's any questions. But thank you for joining us today, and feel free to stay around if you have questions for us.